It was a big weekend on campus for Alabama. Do you think it'll bear any fruit, Jimmy?
You are Locked On Bama, your daily podcast on the Alabama Crimson Tide. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back into Locked On Bama, AHSA Radio Network's Luke Robinson. That's me. Alabama internet legend Jimmy Stein. That's him. This episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. I'll tell you about Monarch Money in just a bit. I want to thank you every day for being here every day. Thank you newbies for being here today. And thanks everybody for making us your first listen every single day. Probably going to shut the door behind me because it keeps looking like I've got a horn growing out of my head occasionally when I put my head down like that.
Maybe you do.
For now, we will talk about the guys that were on campus this weekend, Jimmy. And to be honest, they're still on campus right now. So we don't have a lot of feedback as of yet, but, you know, Jimmy's just got hunches. We'll go with some of Jimmy's hunches today.
The visits are, here's a hunch, the visits will go really well, but because when these kids go to even, when they're like, a visit to New Mexico State, it goes well. Visit to Cal State Fullerton, it goes well. That's just kind of how it works. And, these visits are designed all year long by a staff of professionals who kind of devote their careers to making official visits for athletes go as well as possible. The visits will go well. What people really want to know is, okay, who's going to commit? My feeling all along, especially about this first group, is I do believe Alabama will land guys out of this group. I do think players that are the 13 players official visiting, Jet Tamala on an unofficial. I'm not going to say, hey, this guy's going to commit, because it's just too much of a guess right now. But I do think as many as 4 or 5 of the guys visiting this weekend will ultimately make commitments. What will surprise me a little bit is if there's Sunday evening or Monday or Tuesday commitments. I don't know that that's coming. If y'all want like a guess, like let's say someone is going to commit, what would my guess be? I'd probably say Tristan Davis, the defensive lineman from Missouri. If there is an early commitment, that would be a guess there. Nolan Wilson, probably more of a stretch because I think he's going to want to go on other visits. But how about Jet Tamala? I mean, I think first he would come on an official visit before there would actually be a commitment. But a Jet Tamala decommitment from Iowa State would be loud, considering what's going on. All of those things could happen, but I'm going to just, in terms of an official hunch, as Luke put it, I'm going to say 0 quick commitments or commitments today, tomorrow, this week. But ultimately, maybe as many as 5 from this group by the time the summer ends. I do think Alabama will be largely done with this class by, let's say, August 1st. Largely done. I mean, in terms of the vast majority of the commitments in this class by August 1st. And as we sit here today, I think there's only 5.
All right, let me ask you this. Why do you call him Tristan Davis when like everything else
Titan Davis, because
I wondered. I was looking. I was like, you have said Tristan like
I said Tristan several times because I think because like we always talk about, I think the very first time I got it wrong, like 4 or 5 months ago, and then so once I get it wrong the first time, it's hard to shake. Titan Davis, which is a better name, although wasn't Tristan Brad Pitt's name in Legends of the Fall?
I don't know, but if your choices as a football player are Tristan or Titan, you go with Titan.
You want to go Titan, but there's probably a bunch of dudes named Tristan out there because their moms named him after Brad Pitt's character in Legends of the Fall. It's probably a bunch
they were thinking about
bunch
Brad
of
Pitt during the conception.
Well, that's kind of along the lines of what I was thinking. It only makes sense.
But
Titan's mom could have been a Legends of the Fall fan. She's like, I think I'm going to go with Titan, not Tristan, but
it is so funny, but because like you did it on the last podcast too, and I was like, boy, I guess that's his first name and maybe Titan's a nickname. So I started looking for it, and then I lost interest to butterfly.
Yeah. The better bet is that I got it wrong. That's the better bet. The better bet is I got it wrong. Not I know something no one else knows. It's that I got it wrong.
But the only better bet that you got it wrong is that I'm wrong. So I was like, my wrongness trumps your wrongness like all the time. I'm the ace of spades anyway. So it is Titan Davis. And I was thinking, yeah, if his name is Tristan Titan Davis, I see why people switched it to Titan, because if you are 6'5", 238,
I'll make a deal. If he commits this week, I'll never get it wrong again. How's that?
Very fair.
He commits this week. And if he doesn't commit and ends up picking another school like Missouri, then I'll call him Tristan forever.
I'll reach out to him on Twitter and see how that goes. But Jimmy, let me tell you something else. Since we don't have there's not a lot to learn yet from this weekend. They can't talk to anybody yet. So don't look at us. Don't look at BOL. For information until about 2:00 this afternoon.
Well, I mean, for instance, some kids I know, Bone reported that Jet Washington, for instance, didn't even arrive until Saturday, which means these visits are 48 hours by rule. So Jet Washington's not even going to leave until tomorrow. Which is Monday, as we're recording this on Sunday morning. For those that don't know, so we'll it could be Monday on him. Most of the time, they talk to media sources as they're leaving or once they have left campus. That's just sort of a written/unwritten rule about talking to prospect. Now, I know some schools do it, but I mean, here's the number one thing everybody needs to be on board with. The school only has 48 hours, to make their pitch to these guys. They shouldn't spend part of their 48 hours talking to media. They need to spend 48 hours with the school and with the people and doing school stuff. So the fans, I know y'all are antsy and anxious to know. Let's let them have the full visit, and then most of these kids or their people are willing to talk literally on their travel home.
Yeah.
But while the visit's going on, let them do the visit.
Okay. I'm going to switch gears, but keep it in recruiting.
Yep.
So yesterday, I do a Saturday show a lot of times with some other guys that are with the HSA Radio Network, and they're both big Auburn guys. So occasionally, we go head to head, Alabama Auburn stuff. And one of them is a little bit more Auburnish than the other. And his argument was, he's like, he said something kind of, I don't know, just sort of off the cuff, like, Alabama really picked up their in-state recruiting because Auburn dominated so much last year. And I said, I think that's the narrative. I don't think that's necessarily true. I think that it was more about when you look at last year's crop and the fact that Kalen DeBoer had just gotten there and Nick Saban had just left. It was a perfect storm for Auburn to do well. And there were some guys that Auburn really valued that Alabama didn't go after as much, or that guy didn't have interest in Alabama, so it was never going to happen. And he said, this year's crop's good, but the top 5 guys from last year are better than the top 5 guys this year. I said, I could not disagree more. And I'm going to put it to you. I'm going to just read the top 5. This is from
read the top 5, and I'll give it. Yeah.
I disagree. Okay. And a lot of Alabama people probably disagree because
Alabama's likely to get these guys this year. But that's not how I'm going to look at it. That's not how I'm going to look at it.
I'm trying to look at this truthfully. This is last year's top 5. Okay. And I'm going to read off their national
top 5 per on-3 industry.
On-3 industry, because I think that's the best. He kept going off of
I agree
24/7, just 24/7. I was like, that's fine, and you can do it what you want to. But I think the industry ranking's more legit because it takes the good with the bad and the medium and everything else. But the top 5 last year, Naheem Alford, who ended up at Oregon,
he's really good.
Let me tell you something, and I said,
really
Alabama would have taken Naheem Alford if they could have ever worked it out, but there was no chance to work that out. It just wasn't going to happen.
Yeah, the NIL among other things, probably, but NIL alone, it wasn't going to work out. But Alford's outstanding.
Malik Autry, very good, but he's an Opelika guy. I know Alabama's gone into Opelika and to Auburn for that matter and done well in the past, but Auburn wasn't going to let Malik Autry leave Opelika. That was not happening.
This was never going to happen for Alabama, and I don't even think there was real effort on Alabama's end for whatever reason. But I mean, give Auburn credit for signing a good player. I will say this, and the few Auburn people that hate listen to our podcast are going to.
We appreciate you, by the way.
Yeah, thanks for listening. You're about to throw your beer can at your YouTube, but I think most years the number 2 player in Alabama is better than Malik Autry.
I think that's
not too controversial.
Most years, not a controversial.
I'm not saying Malik Autry's not good. He's really good. But I think most years the state produces a better number 2 prospect than that.
I don't think that's a crazy statement. I also don't think it shouldn't be insulting. Malik Archer is number 45 player in the country according to On3 National. If you're the 45th best player in the country, you're awesome.
Elite.
You and I say that all the time. He's awesome. I would love him on my team.
Elite.
I don't want anybody to get that wrong. Okay.
Elite.
Then Jared Smith, number 52 in the country according and my argument, I said, look, Alabama just didn't pursue him as much. They didn't pursue him really at all. And he was like, well, that's stupid on their part. And I said,
it might be.
I said, it might be, but they didn't. Now, maybe they're wrong. They could very well be. Yeah. We've seen people get recruiting wrong a lot.
That's poor recruiting, too. I hope people understand that. Being bad at evaluations is being bad at recruiting. You can't say, well, that doesn't matter because Alabama didn't try to sign him. Maybe it was a huge mistake not to try and sign him. Maybe it was something off the field. I don't know. I'm not sitting here saying – I'm saying Luke's correct. Alabama didn't really recruit that guy and obviously does not believe he should be ranked where he's ranked.
Okay.
But is he an elite prospect? I think his ranking speaks for itself. And if he proves to be really good, then you can say Alabama made a tremendous mistake here.
And I'm going to have to do the final two, and then we'll do start this again in the next segment. But the final two top five for last year were Anquan Fagans and Eric Winters. There's no doubt in my mind Alabama would have taken Anquan Fagans. They tried to get him. It just didn't work out. Auburn had sunk their teeth in pretty good.
They just beat us.
Kudos. They won that one.
They beat us there.
Alabama was not recruiting Eric Winters that hard.
Never did. And also, people have to take into account this about the transition. So much of who you offer and who you get excited about is based on what happened in camp. DeBoer staff never had camps with any of these guys because they just got here. They're kind of going off of Saban's camp experience, and only Gillespie and Roach were around for that. So that had a lot to do with that. But no, Alabama never recruited Eric Winters either. And I'll be honest, that's a very, to me, it's an average top five. But by average, I don't mean as an insult. To me, average is exactly what it sounds like. Average, like that's an average year in Alabama for that to be the top five.
I think, again, I would consider it a little above average, but I would also say this, that I think this next five I'm going to read to you is a little better. And look, while we think Alabama leads for some of these guys, Alabama probably isn't getting all five, and they may not get but one or two when all is said and done. So it's not like we're trying to be purposely biased. Let me get to Monarch Money, though, Jimmy.
Sure.
Y'all know about Monarch Money. I ain't even got to tell you, but I'm gonna. Because if you ever checked your bank account and wondered, where'd all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in. Your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control of your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So you stop just managing your money and you start building wealth, and that's what it's all about. Look, take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege. It's all one word, LOCKEDONCollege, at monarchmoney.com, monarchmoney.com. It'll give you 50% off your first year if you use that code LOCKEDONCollege. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege, all one word, or half off your first year. And then you can thank Jimmy and me later on because we will have saved you a ton of money.
You're welcome.
Made you a ton of money.
You're welcome.
Not saved you a ton.
That's what we're doing.
Right. So now I did the math on this.
And again, just say the math kind of speaks for itself, doesn't it? I mean, where are these guys ranked on the On3 industry? Which group is ranked higher? One, you compare 1 to 1, 2 to 2, 3 to 3, 4 to 4, and 5 to 5. And where does it come out?
You might throw your beer because of what Jimmy said, and I see why. But at the same time, just listen. We're not saying these guys aren't awesome. They're really good. I would take at least 4 of those guys on my team, probably all 5. I like them. I love him. He just ended up at Oregon. Ended up at Auburn.
I would take all 5,
yeah.
but there's just things we're not privy to or know, even like off the field sort of stuff. I mean, George Pickens is a good example of that. Obviously, he's a great player. He's got off the field issues with the NFL. The Steelers sort of gave him away. So I mean, this is why there can be, hey, we're not sure this kid's a good fit in our locker room type stuff.
And again, that doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad attitude. LeBaron Philon reportedly didn't have great interviews. And everybody was like, oh, he's got a bad attitude. I was like, maybe he just didn't interview at a mature enough level for some scouts to be like, hey, you're not ready to come in this league and be, you're not a bad guy. You're a good person, but you need to we need you to see a little more maturity on the court, off the court, whatever. I don't know. I don't care. He's coming back. Now, the top five, by the way, the top five from last year, the industry average, again, this is on 3 industry. If somebody wants to use 24/7, go for it, was 56.4. That is really good if you ask me. That is very, very good. Now, the top 5 from this year, Sedarian Morgan is number 1, number 14 player in the country. He's a 5-star. You and I both love him. We think he's wonderful. And he is down to Alabama and Auburn. We think Alabama leads. I would put my money on Alabama right now. It doesn't mean I'm guaranteeing it because I ain't. Number 2 is Tank Jones, who, and again, this was a point of contention yesterday. I said, yeah, Tank Jones is, awesome. And he said, well, he's not any better than Malik Autry or Jared Smith. And I said, well, he's ranked higher, and that's not fair to use all the time because some things may be different in terms of one year you may have a bunch of
the best thing to go by. It's the best thing to go by.
But it is the best thing to go by. Then you have E.J. Crowell, who you and I both love, also another 5-star. He's ranked number 32 in the country. Then you have Landon Duckworth, who I personally love. And what I said yesterday was, look, if Alabama hadn't signed Keelan Russell, I'd be frothing at the mouth for Landon Duckworth. But I know common sense tells me Landon Duckworth ain't coming to Alabama after we just signed Keelan Russell. We've got Austin Mack and we've got Ty Simpson, because he's probably like, hey, Ty Simpson could come back another year. He's already the starter. Keelan Russell may usurp him, and Austin Mack may usurp both of them. So that doesn't make sense for him. He can command more money.
Much like we just talked about with Jared Smith and Eric Winters and Malik Autry, Alabama's not been involved with Landon Duckworth, for better or for worse. I mean, maybe that's going to look bad on Alabama down the road, but Alabama just hasn't been involved with Duckworth to this point.
And then you have Zion Gibson, who is the number 72 player in the country, committed to Alabama. We both like him a lot. Really good player. Alabama and Auburn both went after him very hard. Both of them seem to like him a lot. Now, that's just the top 5. But the top 5 average industry ranking as of right now for those 5 is 39.4.
Much higher. That's actually much higher when you think about it.
17 points higher.
That's much higher.
I think I said 56 for the other. So, I mean, again, that doesn't mean, yes, it's much higher on the ranking. At the same time, 56 is a really good average too. I'm not trying to poo-poo anything anybody else has done. I'm trying to say, hey, if you want to get into an argument about which top 5 is better, I'm going to bring these numbers to the table. Now, in 5 years, we may be able to look back and say your top 5 was better.
It's a more accurate way to do it. It's 5 years down the road.
Right.
And not just based it on recruiting rankings, but recruiting rankings are the best thing we have to go on right now. And I think that's the best way to, quote, settle that dispute. I think this year's group is better. The recruiting rankings justify that. Now, I don't think it's a situation where Alabama's like, oh, finally some in-state guys worth going after. Again, I think Alabama's issues in-state last year were mostly a product of not having very long to create relationships or see kids in camps that where so much of your opinion about these guys is made. It was a brand new staff with no camps or just last summer's camp. I think that explains it more than anything else.
Let me do one other thing. It's kind of funny because the 2 Auburn guys were like, well, I think some Alabama fans are coping because we haven't, won the state in so long. And I said, that may be right. I said, but I feel like there's a couple years there Auburn did well, the Alabama didn't go after it. And I just found it. It was 2018. Listen to this crop, okay? Again, on the surface, actually, even by ranking, and this wasn't a great, but this was more of an average crop to me. Justin Ross was number 1. He ended up going to Clemson. Alabama got Jalen Armour at Davis at number 2. He was number 106 in the country. Then listen to the rest of this bunch that year. Now, again, these may all be super fine people, but the football production in college and if any in pro was just not there. Quainus Miller, Harold Joyner, Asa Martin, Seth Williams, Tank Jenkins, Jack West, Andre Fox, James Foster, Malik Langham, Cedric Jackson, Miles Mason, Kevontae Ruggs, Jalen Cunningham, Matthew Flint. And what I'm noticing in here, Alabama so far, I read off like 17 names. Alabama only signed one of them. That was Jalen Armour Davis. By the way, that's the only one that really had a meaningful college career outside of Justin Ross, who was number 1.
Yeah, Jalen Armour-Davis, I think, was a 4th or 5th round pick in the NFL draft. So he ended up being drafted around where he was ranked as a prospect. I mean, I think what would you say, it was like 106
Yep,
nationally,
in the country.
and then probably was drafted somewhere around 120, about the 120th draft pick. So it just sort of matched. But boy, that is, frankly, if you're going to compare it year by year, that would have been a particularly bad year, which is a great example that Luke made of, hey, the crops are different year to year. Some years it's unbelievable, like the 08 group, with Julio and all them, and it's just unbelievable. And then some years it's just sparse on the front end, and then it proves to be down the road just sparse. That's the nature of a state like Alabama that has a smaller population base. The per capita numbers are unbelievable in terms of Alabama producing prospects, but sometimes just the raw overall quantity of numbers just aren't there. And it's more related to population size than anything else. But it can drastically go up and down year to year. This year looks pretty good to me right now, but we may be here 7 years later going over these names going, I don't remember any of these guys. That does happen, but I don't think so. Most of the time, the recruiting rankings get it largely right. Most of the time.
They get it right enough to when you're trying to factor in their kids, they come from different backgrounds. You don't know about their family situations. What if a family member dies? What if a mentor passes away? What if they get in trouble, even by accident? I mean, there are a million things to factor in, so it is tough. But the most interesting thing to me, the guy that has probably had the most illustrious NFL career was number 36 in the state that year, and that was Roger McCreary. He went to Auburn. He was like number 1,080 in the country, and he ended up being a first-round pick, if I remember, or second-round pick, right?
Yeah,
First or second.
He's from Williamson in Mobile.
Yeah, he's good.
Excellent player.
But anyway, my point is this, and it's a fruitless argument at the beginning. But if you are going to have the argument, which top 5 was better last year or this year, I think I just put some empirical evidence on the board to say this year's is better. On the field, maybe last year's is better. Maybe. We'll find out.
We'll get to find out.
Okay. Now, I just felt like I missed a golden opportunity. I missed a golden opportunity yesterday to use a lot of these numbers because we do that show very early on Saturday mornings, and I had just woken up, and I wasn't expecting to have that argument.
See, like Stanza, you came up with a good argument later, like jerk store.
I was like, jerk store.
Jerk store.
And then I went and bought a whole thing of shrimp because I wanted him to use the shrimp joke, the whole thing. But Jimmy, I want to get to your next on the roster ranking countdown. I also want to say 2 quick things. First of all, don't go on a rant because we could, but we're not. Baseball was very disappointing this weekend. Mm-hmm. Very. And again, I can still like Rob Vaughn. I do. I can still like this team. I do for the most part. That was sad what we did this weekend. Sad.
Yeah, I won't go on a rant. I'll just say, Luke is correct. That was an abysmal postseason showing for Alabama. 2nd year in a row. Abysmal postseason showing. So I don't want people to go too far with it because I think people have lost some. This is our 3rd year in a row making the tournament. We went like 13 years only making the tournament like once. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, let's at least appreciate that we are ascending as a program. That doesn't mean that what happened this weekend excuses it. I'm not doing that. I'm just saying that hey, 3 years in a row making the tournament is some solid progress. Let's see what happens next year.
Secondly, some TV times were announced, and they're even worse than I thought.
Really?
First of all,
I was only disappointed in one.
Well, we are all disappointed in Wisconsin at 11. I mean, for the love of all things holy.
Yeah, I hate that, but I mean, you can only go by what TV wants to put on when. But I mean, it's not like Alabama has a choice. I mean,
I'm disappointed in Florida State. Number one, because I'm going, and I'm going to have the worst case of swamp butt in the history of Doak Campbell Stadium. It's going to be a gazillion degrees, all the humidity. I'm going to feel like, Borat's partner in a jar in a sauna. Remember Borat's partner that he rode around with? I can't remember his name. The big fat guy.
That he naked wrestled with. That was one of the funniest.
It's one of the I talked to a lot last weekend about because somebody does a perfect Borat impersonation, and I was like, that is still one of the most That's one of the funniest things I've ever seen, cringeworthy things I've ever seen, scary things I've ever seen. Can you imagine the dedication to the craft Borat had to have to get in that position with that guy at that moment? I mean, number one, to get in that position with any guy for a movie, and then get in with that guy.
It's weird. It's weird to use the word professional when it comes to describe that, but yeah, professional.
That's the only term you can use. Yep. No amateur could pull that off.
I'm not saying it was the funniest scene I've ever seen in my life in any movie, but I do think it's fair to say I probably laughed harder during that scene than any scene I've ever laughed at my whole life in any movie. I probably laughed for like 30 minutes. And then right when I was finished laughing, like, why am I even watching this? Turn this off.
I swear to God, that's what I thought. I felt guilty for everybody involved, including me, after watching that. I felt embarrassed for all of us.
I'm turning myself in to the authorities for watching this. It's hilarious. Not watching again though.
All right. So, and then I don't like, bottom line, I don't like the FSU 2:30 kick. I wanted it to be night, but I get it. When you got Garrett Nussmeier traveling to Cade Klubnik and his Death Valley against Death Valley, and those two teams are going to be ranked higher cumulatively than Alabama and FSU. I understand it. I just don't love it. And then 6:45 for the second game. I think a lot of people are going to like it because it should be cooler because it's nighttime.
It's cooler.
I always disagree with people about that at night in the South because, again, having grown up here, nighttime tricks you. You get out there and you think it's going to be better, and it smacks you in the face like Hakeem Olajuwon did to Vernon Maxwell in that viral video where Vernon Maxwell – have you ever heard that? Vernon Maxwell, who played for Florida, we all remember him. He was with Houston, and a guy asked him on a podcast, is it true that you and Hakeem Olajuwon got in a fight? He said, well, we didn't get in a fight. That bleepity bleep slapped me right in the face with his old man crusty hands. It is the funniest. Vernon Maxwell is one of the most vulgar people when talking, but he's also hilarious. It's crazy. But yeah, it's the humidity slaps you in the face like Hakeem Olajuwon when you come outside in the South at night. It's not right. It shouldn't be that way.
I'll still take the night time over the 11 or 2:30 for any game for myself in September in Tuscaloosa. Just speaking for myself, who will be there. I was pleased to see it was 6:45 and not it's bad enough when you're playing Louisiana Monroe and you expect to win by 5 touchdowns, but or you can now, sort of.
Very
fair.
I
don't know how I feel about that.
Very fair, except what if there could be a really good night game on, and I hate to miss those. That's what I hate.
Yeah, like that's a solid point there because it is about other games and what's going on. But yeah, I'm only disappointed really in the Wisconsin kick time. And I'm not mad about it. I get it. I'm just like, I was hoping that wouldn't be because it's just going to be so hot.
And there are two other games, I can't remember them off the top of my head, but are very okay, those are two really good games. So I kind of get it because they're thinking that Wisconsin's not going to give Alabama much of a fight is what I think. And so, or at least it's not going to be a great game. Alabama should win it. They're a double-digit favorite. So I get it. I'm just saying from Alabama's perspective, 11 o'clock big game, what's worse?
Wisconsin's not carrying a lot of hype, are they?
They really are.
Last summer, every Alabama fan could tell you that Wisconsin's quarterback is Tyler Van Dyke. And now this summer, I don't know that hardly any Alabama fans can tell you who Wisconsin's quarterback is expected to be this fall. I mean,
if it's anything like all Wisconsin, I assume all Wisconsin quarterbacks have three names. It's probably Dyke Van Tyler this year, or Van Tyler Dyke.
It's a Maryland transfer, Billy Edwards, who was a starting quarterback in Maryland last year. So
I'm sure they call him William.
He's played and played fairly well, at least to maintain the starting job at Maryland following Talia Tungavailoa. But he's not going to move the needle. And like I said, that program is floundering. They can fix it in one afternoon at Bryant-Denny. Let's remember that.
I got the solution on how to fix it. It's not an easy fix.
That'll fix it. Let's hope it's not an easy fix. We'll just fly through roster ranking 61 is Fatu Toa Henry. Fatu Toa Henry, who used to be known as Cavante Henry, the JUCO Problem with him is he's a JUCO and he missed a spring, hurt, and he's playing a position where there's a lot of players at Bandit. Might play some Wolf, might play Bandit. Both positions pretty stacked, and he missed the spring, so he's just going to be a little bit behind the 8 ball. Not sure how much we'll see him. Number 60, Austin Mack. I mean, I hate having him down here at 60 because you think, hey, isn't he quarterback number 2? I think by the time, if Todd doesn't play well and you have to make a change, I'm going to go out on a limb and say by the time that happens, if it does at all, I think Keelan Russell will be QB2 by that point. That's a prediction that I'm making. As of today, Austin Mack is QB2. As of today, I would tell you Austin Mack's going to have a nice career at quarterback playing college football, but it's just tough getting on the field at Alabama. I mean, he's in a room with 2 5-stars. I mean, think about that. He's in a room with 2 5-stars, but I still think Austin Mack has a lot of promise. He's sort of a quarterback you would create in a lab with both tangibles and intangibles. He's hardworking. He's smart. He's a good kid. I'm really rooting for him. And again, he's QB2 today. We have him at 60 down here in the roster rankings, which ultimately means I'll be surprised if he starts a game and we do have Keelan Russell ranked a little higher.
Yeah, I'm with. So you got Henry and Mack. That's 61, 60. We're in the 50s tomorrow.
Can you believe it? Tomorrow we win the 50s. That means football's coming up, man.
And we're in our 50s.
We are. We're well into our 50s. We've got the 50s solved at this point.
In our life countdown. All right, that's going to do it for today's pod. We'll be back tomorrow with more. Until then, roll tide, everybody.
Roll tide.